Hello and welcome to Amazing Aircraft. Ever wondered what the largest and heaviest bomber ever built was? How did it fly with 6 propellers and 4 jet engines? And what innovative experiments did it perform? Today, we'll explore the Convair B-36 Peacemaker, the ultimate Cold War deterrent. We'll look at its design, various versions, and unique experiments, like nuclear propulsion and Parasite fighters. Ready to dive into its story? Let's go! The B-36 was born out of a need for a long-range bomber during World War II that could strike at Germany's industrial heartland from bases in China or India in case Britain or the Pacific Islands fell to the Axis powers. In 1941, the U.S. Army Air Corps issued a specification for a bomber that could fly 16,000 kilometers, cruise at 12,000 meters, and carry a 4,500-kilogram bomb load. Only 2 companies responded, Convair, which was then called Consolidated, and Boeing. Convair won the contract and began to work on the project, designated XB-36. The XB-36 was a massive aircraft, with a wingspan of 70 meters, a length of 49 meters, and a height of 14 meters. It had 6 28-cylinder Pratt & Whitney R-4360 engines, each producing 2,200 kilowatts, mounted in a pusher configuration, meaning that the propellers faced backward. This arrangement reduced the drag and noise of the propellers, but also caused problems with engine cooling and maintenance. The B-36 had a crew of 15 in the early models and a reduced crew of 13 or 9 in the later models, depending on the configuration. It was armed with 16 20mm cannons in 8 remote-controlled turrets, plus a fixed tailgun. It could carry up to 39,600 kilograms of bombs, more than any other bomber in history. The development of the B-36 was slowed down by the U.S. entry into World War II, as Convair had to focus on producing the B-24 Liberator bomber. The B-36 also faced technical challenges, such as designing a suitable landing gear, testing the effects of high-altitude flight, and preventing engine fires caused by carburetor icing. The prototype, the XB-36, flew for the first time on August 8, 1946, almost a year after the end of the war. Despite these challenges, the B-36 became operational in 1948 and served as the backbone of the Strategic Air Command for over a decade. The B-36 was not only the largest and heaviest bomber ever built, but also one of the most diverse and adaptable. It had many variants and modifications that enhanced its performance and capabilities. Let's take a look at some of the most important and interesting ones. The B-36A was the first production variant, unarmed and used for training, with 6 2,200 kilowatt engines and a crew of 15. It could carry up to 39,600 kilograms of bombs, but had a limited range of 16,000 kilometers, with only 22 built, most later converted to RB-36E reconnaissance models. The B-36B was the first armed variant, with 16 20mm cannons and 8 remote-controlled turrets, plus a tailgun. It also had more powerful engines, each producing 2,600 kilowatts. It had a range of 19,000 kilometers and a ceiling of 12,000 meters. It was the main bomber version until the introduction of the B-36D-73 were built, and some were later converted to RB-36D and B-36D. The B-36D introduced jet engines for better performance, with 4J-47 jets, and increased bomb capacity to 43,600 kilograms, becoming the most numerous variant with 384 built. The B-36F had improved engines and upgraded equipment, used mainly for strategic bombing, with 34 built. The B-36H further enhanced engines, radar, and cockpit features, with 83 built. The B-36J, the final variant, had a featherweight configuration, extra fuel tanks, and a strengthened landing gear, with 33 built, being the fastest and highest flying variant. The B-36 was not only a versatile and powerful bomber, but also a platform for several experimental and innovative projects that pushed the boundaries of aviation. The nuclear energy for the propulsion of aircraft project and the aircraft nuclear propulsion program were attempts to develop a nuclear-powered aircraft that could fly indefinitely without refueling. The B-36 was chosen as a testbed for this concept. and one B-36H was modified to carry a 1 megawatt air-cooled nuclear reactor in its rear bomb bay. This aircraft, designated NB-36H, flew 47 test flights between 1955 and 1957, with the reactor operating but not powering the engines. The goal was to study the effects of radiation on the aircraft and the crew, and to test the feasibility of shielding and cooling systems. The project was canceled in 1961 due to technical difficulties, safety concerns, and the development of intercontinental ballistic missiles. The FICON project was an attempt to extend the range and capabilities of fighter aircraft by attaching them to the B-36 as Parasite aircraft. The idea was to use the B-36 as a mothership that could carry, launch, and retrieve a smaller jet fighter, such as the RF-84K Thunderflash, using a trapeze mechanism in the bomb bay. The fighter could then perform reconnaissance or escort missions and return to the B-36 for refueling and protection. The project was tested successfully in the early 1950s, with 10 B-36s and 25 RF-84Ks modified for this purpose. However, the project was abandoned by 1956 due to operational difficulties, the introduction of aerial refueling, and the development of longer-range fighters. The Tiptoe and Tom-Tom projects were attempts to increase the aspect ratio and the range of the B-36 by attaching smaller jet aircraft to its wingtips. The idea was to use the wingtip vortices of the B-36 to reduce the drag and increase the lift of the jet aircraft and vice versa, creating a coupled wing system that could fly farther and faster. The project involved docking F-84 Thunderjet fighters to the wingtips of B-29 and B-36 bombers using rigid or flexible booms. The project was tested in the early 1950s but proved to be very unstable and dangerous. One test flight resulted in a fatal crash when an F-84 flipped over and collided with the B-29. The project was canceled soon after due to the lack of practical benefits and the emergence of more efficient jet engines. The B-36 was a remarkable aircraft that demonstrated the technological and engineering achievements of the post-war era. However, it also faced the challenges and limitations of the jet age and the changing geopolitical landscape. The B-36 entered service in 1948 and served as the main nuclear weapon delivery vehicle of the Strategic Air Command until 1955. It was the only bomber capable of carrying the first atomic bombs and hydrogen bombs in its bomb bay without modifications. It also performed long-range reconnaissance missions over the Soviet Union and China, collecting valuable intelligence and testing the enemy's air defenses. It set several records for endurance and altitude, such as flying non-stop for 50 hours and reaching 18,000 meters. It also participated in various experiments and innovations, such as nuclear propulsion, Parasite aircraft, and wingtip docking. It was the largest and heaviest mass-produced piston-engine aircraft ever built, and it had more engines than any other aircraft in history. However, the B-36 was soon rendered obsolete by the development of faster and more efficient jet bombers, such as the B-47 and the B-52, which could fly higher, farther, and avoid interception by jet fighters and surface-to-air missiles. The B-36 also had issues with engine reliability and maintenance, and required a large and costly infrastructure to support its operations. Additionally, budget cuts and policy changes during the Eisenhower administration, which favored the development of intercontinental ballistic missiles and aerial refueling over the production of new bombers, further impacted the B-36. As a result, the B-36 was phased out of the SAC inventory between 1956 and 1959, and most were either scrapped or sent to museums. Despite its relatively short operational life, the B-36 left a lasting impact on aviation history and military strategy. The B-36 was a significant aircraft that contributed to the deterrence of nuclear war and the advancement of science and technology. It demonstrated the technological and engineering achievements of the post-war era and inspired the design of other aircraft, such as the B-60, the XC-99, and the B-70. It also played a crucial role in the development of the U.S. nuclear deterrence strategy and the Cold War, serving as the main instrument of the SAC's doctrine of massive retaliation. Culturally and historically, the B-36 appeared in films, books, and museums, becoming a symbol of American air power and innovation. The B-36 was a remarkable aircraft that marked the end of an era and the beginning of a new one. It was the ultimate expression of the piston-engine bomber and the precursor of the jet-powered bomber. That's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, remember to like, share, and subscribe. The sky is not the limit, it's just the beginning. Thanks for watching. See you next time.